BowmanDigitalMedia.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Marketing Mondays with Ira Bowman. Today, I'm flying solo. I had a guest scheduled for today. She couldn't make it. She's having some family issues. And so I decided to kind of do something different. I could have booked, I thought about booking another guest, but then I thought, you know what? Let me flip the script a little bit. I'm going to kind of go into teacher mode. Why? Because I see a lot of people struggle with graphics, and I want to help if I can. So I thought, you know what? There are free resources. Look, in full disclosure, I don't use the resources that I'm going to be teaching you about today very much because I'm a professional and I have access to some of the more expensive software, right? However, I'm going to show you today a bunch of free stuff that you can use and things to keep in mind with fonts and colors and setups, layouts that you can make potentially a dramatic impact, positive impact on your graphics. I'm also going to talk about, the need to necessarily create when you can do something called curate. I did a test today at 7:30, I think, a.m. my time. I took a video from Imgur, which is just a resource that you can use, again, free. It's that sand art. And I said, let me see how well this does. I didn't do anything but find the video and share it. And of course, I, put a little comment on there before I posted it. But it was just a test to see how well it did. I'm going to tell you, surprisingly well. So you don't necessarily need to create your own content. That's what I'm trying to get at here. You can curate. Find stuff that you think is interesting and share it. And that can help you too. So if you're more left brain, analytical and all that stuff, math minded, not right brain, more creative, you can still use this information in ways to help you. So hello to everybody. I hope that you came prepared to learn. I might go over, just in full disclosure, because this is the stuff that I geek out about. I love graphics. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm struggling a little bit with how to present this because I usually, now in full disclosure, I am blind as a bat. I have bifocals and I have a 40-inch. Now in full disclosure, if you want my setup, I have a monitor over to my left that's set up for Instagram. So it's square. I have one sit over to my right. That's a 1920 by 1080 screen set up for videos. And then I have my 40-inch video that I use when I'm doing Pexel level work, because that just means real close, because I want to be able to see. I don't have to have a magnifying glass or anything like we used to do in the old days with design. Okay, so 3 setups. That's how my setup for design work. Okay, I'm going to scoot this microphone out of the way. Hopefully that didn't make a lot of noise. But typically when I design, I'm looking straight ahead. Now, when I run this show, I use this program called StreamYard. So usually I'm staring at StreamYard. I've got LinkedIn Live over here, and I've got anything that I share on the screen typically over to my right. So I'm going to be looking this direction for a little bit. I'm not trying to be like cool or anything like that. I'm not trying to be aloof, whatever the way to explain this. So I'm going to try to run this thing because I do want to interact with you. In fact, at any time, any questions, you can still ask them. So if you have questions or comments for the show, go ahead and put them, in the comments, and I'll still show them. But I think first, before we get into, I'm going to be spending a lot of time. Let me share my screen. I'm going to be spending a lot of time in Canva today, because that's, why is it not sharing? Hang on a second. It's thinking about sharing. In fact, I hope I don't freeze up here. I might have too much stuff open. I have every program in the world open. Let me close the program and see if that helps. Can you guys still hear me? I hope you can. All right. I'm closing out the programs. So hopefully you guys are still there. Otherwise, it's going to be really embarrassing. Okay, so while this thing is spinning, I don't know if you can still see me. It looks like you can. I hope you can. I don't know if you can. But while I'm waiting for my computer to like unfreeze itself, there's 2 main programs that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to be talking about Pexels, and I'm going to be talking about Canva. Pexels I use to get stock photos for free. Now, again, full disclosure, I don't use it as much as some of the other stock photo sites that have quote unquote better images, but I'm paying for that ability, like iStock Photo, for example. But Pexels is free. The other one that I use is, well, again, I don't use it, but I recommend a lot of people use Canva. Canva is more for your layouts. You can do simple setups, infographics, GIF work. If you want to do a marketing slick, a brochure, business card, there's all kinds of layouts in there. So I want to show that. And my computer is still freezing. Can you check and see if you can see me live, or if I have to restart this thing? I don't know if I'm live or not. I'm just checking. I thought about it. I've got it on my phone here. Yeah. Okay, I'm still live. Well, what's funny is I can't share my screen. I might have to stop and restart, because yeah, can you just tell everybody to get off for a second? I'm gonna need to see if I can get this unfrozen. I can't see or do anything. I can talk to you right now, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I can't do the art lessons while we're doing this. Okay, but if you're on a computer, go to Canva, canva.com. That's one tab that you want to have open. The other tab is Pexels. It's P-E-X-E-L-S. So it's Pexels.com. In fact, you can find me on there. I have a profile. You can see the photos that I've loaded. I actually contribute photography work to Pexels to kind of give back. I like to give back, if you haven't figured that out. Okay. Now let's do this. Let's talk about some basic design components. This was not the order of operations. I'm just trying to fill time while I'm waiting for my computer to unfreeze itself here, which is embarrassing. I've never actually had this problem happen, but I had all my design programs open because I was going to try and show you guys everything that I use in case you want to take this to the next level, but I'll just have to talk about it. I had my Illustrator open. I had my Photoshop open. I had Adobe Premiere open. I had all kinds of stuff open. So those are the main 3 programs that I use, in case you guys are curious. I use Adobe Suite Illustrator, Photoshop, and Premiere. I use Premiere to create my videos. I use Illustrator to create brand new graphics. And I use Photoshop, obviously, to edit. Then the other one that I use with photography work is Lightroom. Photography, when you're taking the photos and you're not trying to edit, like, take somebody and add glasses to them or put them in a Superman outfit or something crazy like that. When you're just trying to, fix the color, do the color corrections, adjust lighting, maybe bring up or down contrast and things like that, I use Lightroom. But let's talk about design principles. Again, I apologize. This is frozen. If it doesn't fix itself in the next couple minutes, I'm going to just start over. But I'm kind of stuck in this little rut. So I can't do anything on my I can't do anything on my internet right now, which is frustrating me, in full disclosure. Okay, so questions for the show. I can't see them, so I'm just going to talk. Design principles. There's this first thing I'll talk about is this thing called the rule of thirds. If you've never heard of the rule of thirds, Google the rule of thirds, and what you're going to see, if it's accurate, is a diagram with 9 points on it. Basically, what happens is if you come in your screen a third of the way and you do a diagonal line, or I'm sorry, a vertical line a third of the way in, and go from the right-hand side of your screen, so from the left and the right, basically you want to break your screen up into 3 sections. And then you do the same thing horizontally. You come down a third and make a line, and then you go up a third from the bottom and make a line. Now, every place where you have intersection points, just kind of in your head go, okay, that's an important spot and that's an important spot. What you always want to do when you're setting up your graphics is you want to have the main, anything that's going to be a main focal point. You want to hit those dots, right? So like if I'm setting up to be in a shot, and then I'm going to use dialogue, I typically will push myself over. If you go back and look at any of my graphics, I'll push myself over to the right or to the left. But if you notice the heights, I'm usually not up 100%. I'm usually either halfway or a third of the way up. And the reason why is I'm trying to hit those spots with the focal points. Now, on the other side for balance, because you always want to make sure things are balanced, I'll put in the opposite end, usually either face high or, so let's say I'm in the bottom left 1/3 quadrant. Okay, so I'm in the left 1/3 spot. Remember, rule of thirds. So I'm 1/3 up and I'm 1/3 in. That's one focal point. Now I'm either going to be over directly on the other side, on the other third, or I'm going to be up in the opposite panel like a diagonal. Okay, so again, I apologize. I still can't do anything to share. So hopefully this is making sense, because I'm going to restart this in just a second if I can. So you guys will have to come back on, and I apologize if this isn't better. But one thing I will say is you can always find my videos whenever I go live on YouTube. So we can, if we start over, just come back to my LinkedIn Live, but then you can find the full video on YouTube. But I'm going to cover this rule of thirds, and then if it doesn't let me do anything, I'm going to go from there, because I can see I have 13 comments, but I can't see them, so I can't answer them. But rule of thirds is really simple. It's about how to set up the board, whether that be a flyer, a business card, an infographic, anything that you're doing design work. You want to keep in mind a few basic principles, and it'll just look more natural. That's really the bottom line here, is when you break the rule of thirds, it looks weird. It feels weird, almost like something's wrong. You don't even necessarily know what it is, because a lot of people don't know the rule of thirds. But the rule of thirds, to me, is the most important design element. That's like the foundational piece. Now, the other thing that I want to get into is colors. And we're going to talk about colors a lot, but I want to show you because it'll make more sense, right? So there's primary colors, secondary colors, and tri-colors on the wheel. And I want to show you how it all comes together. And then we also are going to talk about fonts, because if you can master font selection, color selection, and graphic placement. Those three things. You can elevate your designs so much. And if that's all you take away from today, again, placement, colors, and fonts. If you can master those three things, your design value will greatly improve. You'll get a lot more out of it because and then we'll talk about white space too, calming effect. The calming effect. A lot of times people are cramming too much stuff in their designs. So we'll talk about that too. But that gets into style a little bit. So anyways, I'll tell you what, this thing, I'm 15 minutes in, it's still not letting me restart. I'm going to end this live and I'm just going to restart. So I basically have to shut down my computer to do it because I can't even get to my internet. But I'm going to hard stop it. So there's no fancy music. There's no outro graphics because, again, I can't do any of that. So I apologize. I've never had this issue before. But I'm going to restart. So give me like 30 seconds to restart because I could go back onto my StreamYard. But actually, give me like 2 minutes. I'll be back live in just 2 minutes. And I apologize for this again. I can't do art lessons if I can't show you the screen and the programs on how to set stuff up. So I'm just going to, even though it's embarrassing, I'm going to redo it and we'll go from there. So thanks for joining me. I'll be right back.
I have them all get on the hot.
This is the last live I have today. So, oh, I think I'm still live. Am I still live? Can you see?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm back. I don't know if y'all can hear me. I have no idea what just happened. Okay. But I got used to my screens again. My wife says she can see me. All right. And Michelle says she can see me. Whew. All right. Well, that was weird because I killed the thing. How do you do? Brady, I'm trying to do graphics lessons and my screen froze. So I thought I had to restart it. But anyways, I'm back. Okay, so let me, without further ado, I got this stuff up. So Canva, Pexels. Let me share my screen. I've never had that issue before. That's so weird. All right. Okay, it's working. Woo! Thank you so much. Now I gotta like calm down. I got nerves going. All right, I'm nervous. So the very first thing that I want to show you is Pexels. What is Pexels? Pexels is a resource that you can use to find photographs, like base photos for your imagery, right? So let's say you want to do sports cars. So, you can use any of these photographs for free in your art or in your, campaigns. You don't have to pay somebody to go shoot a car. You could just find one to use. So yeah, this is called Pexels. I use it pretty much every day, right? So let me do this. Let me take this right here and put this here in the comments so that you can use them. Pexels, again, is for free artwork. Now, in full disclosure, I upload some of my own art. So if you're interested, you could, get some of mine. These are some of the photos that I've taken myself and put up in for other people to use. They can use them however they like. You can download them and use them. And, one thing that I like about Pexels, in full disclosure, is if you use it and you want to, you can actually make a donation to the photographer, which, trust me, I really appreciate it. I can only speak for myself, but I'm just going to assume that all of us appreciate it. But really, we don't expect it. So just because you download it and use it doesn't mean, we're expecting you to tip us. However, probably even more than the money is it's kind of cool when somebody downloads your photographs. when they send you backwards a link to how they used it, right? So like somebody might download this photo of the bird on the rock, and then they'll put like their logo on it and something motivational, or, you know, hire us for landscaping or whatever, right? I mean, who knows how they're going to use it. But this one right here, for example, we shot this for my wife's Scentsy business. And I thought, what the heck? Other Scentsy dealers might want to use it too. So we put it up, and it helps show off my skill. That's the idea. So anyways, there you go. So that's pexels.com. So again, anything that you're looking for, you can pretty much find it. I was doing boardroom stuff the other day for one of my clients. So, and then, you know, they're showing me different conference rooms and things like that. So in this particular case, we were looking for photos that didn't have any people in it. So I actually, let me see if I can find it real quick. That'd be kind of cool if I can actually find the one. I can show you what I did with it. Well, never mind. I'm not going to do that. But I will go to the photo. Bear with me just 1 second. I'm just going through my folders on my computer here. I'm actually going to bring up that photograph, and I'm going to show you what you can do once you download it, like the type of work that you can do is the idea. Called that corporate services, if I remember right. Yep, here it is. Okay. So I downloaded a picture from Pexels, and then what I'm going to show you guys how to do today is how to do this in Canva. Now, in full disclosure, I actually did this in Photoshop. This is the kind of work that I do in Photoshop, okay? So if you have Photoshop and you want me to show you how to do this in Photoshop, you know, I can bring up my Photoshop, although I have a feeling that that's what kind of locked everything up, because I had Illustrator open, I had I had Premiere open, and I had Photoshop open. I didn't even have Lightroom open, but anyways. So let's talk about the rule of thirds real quick. You can actually kind of see it the way I lined this up. So you have your vertical lines, a third of the way in, a third of the way in. This actually should cheat over just a little bit, right? But basically it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And then if you see where this line hits, that's about 1/3. Again, it's not hard and fast. You can be within a plus or minus. But basically, a third of the way in and a third of the way in. This is 1 point. This is another point. This is another point, and this is another point. That's why I have this table set up the way I do, okay? Because if I didn't, it wouldn't feel natural. That's just the fact of it. So now my points of emphasis are right here. I'm in the bottom 1/3, and I'm in the top 1/3. My 2 points of emphasis: the logo, the logo right here, and corporate services, including board minutes. That's what we're trying to tell, or, you know, it's an infographic. So that's the information. We're trying to let people know that if you need corporate services, including board minutes, you can get it from West Bay Financial Group. And then I added a box, a frame. I like to frame my work. That's kind of my style. So I typically will have one element that bleeds off the edge. That's an Ira Bowman style. And then I typically will frame it out in one of the primary colors that I'm using. Now in these, I'm using what we call tertiary colors, and I'm using cool colors. We'll get into colors in a minute. But also I'm using totally sans serif font in both. And usually with sans serifs, you're going to do one sans serif, then typically you're going to either do something really thick or thin. We'll get into fonts. We'll get into fonts much more in just a second. I have a feeling you guys are going to have a lot of questions about fonts, so I want to teach you about fonts too. And thank you very much for the compliments, by the way. I appreciate that. This one is very simple. It's very simple, but this is the kind of stuff that I like to do on social media because it's easy to absorb. When people are scrolling quickly, they get it. And it is visually interesting, so a lot of times it'll make people stop and consider it, which, you know, you find that out by doing A/B testing. Right? Like if you put up a bunch of graphics and these ones do well and those ones don't do well, then you try to analyze what's the differences and use more of the stuff that's working for you and your audience. Also, it helps to know who you're going after. Helps. For example, these, well, I don't want to say too much as a client, so I'll just stop right there. But another example of one that I did recently is right here. So this is one. I downloaded this car from Pexels. I added the box and the logo and then the frame, right? Now on this one, I don't have a bleed out because this is not for me. This is for my client. So we're doing things a little bit differently here. But you can get this exact photo from, I think I put in blue sports car. You can see how bad I spell. But anyways, you know, like if you're looking for a blue sports car, you can just, you know what I mean? Put it in there and then they show up. Now, you know, not everything, because I use the word blue. So stuff that isn't a car is going to be in there. But this is a great way to find photos. And by the way, when you're looking for graphics to use in social media posts and infographics, you want to find stuff like this. This has a lot of room for you to use for overlay. Okay, so your copy needs to go somewhere. If you pick a photo that has, like this one actually is not great. This would be good for like 1 or 2 words. But this one, even though it's a cool photo, it's not great for social media posting unless you're just going to post the photo itself, which I don't know why you would do that, because you didn't take the photo, and I'm assuming that this isn't your logo. You know what I mean? So like if I was going to use this one, in full disclosure, I probably would input this into Photoshop and overlay the logo on the top of that, which would include some warping, which is a little bit advanced. Like, you know what I mean? So that's not necessarily something I would have you do. When you're picking photos, look for ones like this, where it's shot straight on, 90-degree angles, where if you're going to use a logo and drop a logo in, I could drop it in right there. I could drop it in right there. Basically, any of the 4 corners, I could drop it in and it would look natural. I even could drop it in over the center and it would look natural. Okay? So try to find photos like that that give you space, like this pool table one. Could totally do it there too. Okay? So this one, for example, would be a little bit harder because you've got the angles. I mean, you could drop it right there, but that's really about your only natural fit unless you try to squeeze it in right at the bottom. Again, you could do it. I actually used this graphic right here. Let me show you how I use this graphic since I've got it up. This one right here, I used, I don't think I've actually made this one public yet, so this will be my premiere of this particular photo, but here we go. So I took this photo that you're seeing. You're not seeing it because I'm covering it up. So I took this photo. I changed the proportion, the ratio, just a little bit to fit what I was looking for, which was an Instagram square format. So when you're on Instagram, you want to set up in squares if you can. And I turned it into that. But see, so what I did is I pulled the black space. I created more black space. You see, more blank space, if you will. And then I put, look, this is up in the 1/3. So that's a point of emphasis. And then I use colors for contrast. So his color scheme is gray and yellow, right? So I used his PMS yellow in a sans serif. I'm not much for sans, or for serif fonts. I got to be honest. If you don't know what that is, well, I'm going to show you in a minute. But anyway, I don't like serif fonts. I'm just not a fan of them. The little things at the bottom, I don't like to use them. There's not really a contemporary feel to them. So typically when I'm using font selections, I'm going to go with either some type of a script font, like a cursive type of a font, or thin. And then I'm also going to go with a thick block type of a sans serif font, right? And then I use colors. So, and typically what you want to do is have a primary font and an accent font per piece. So usually just 2 types of fonts maximum. And again, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask, but I'm just trying to show you what's possible. Now you could do this in Canva. This one right here, I could have easily done. Now in full disclosure, I didn't use Canva because again, I have Photoshop. So I built this out in Photoshop in about 30 seconds. In full disclosure, it just doesn't take me long, right? But I've been doing this a long time. So there you go. So there's the picture. Now, if you want it, what you want to do is you just hit the download button, which is there somewhere. Oh, free download. Yeah. Just hit the download button. Download it. Okay. And then again, like I said, and you can pick your size, which is kind of cool. And if you want, you can donate. You can follow whoever, the person who contributed it was. In this case, it was Pixabay. They're putting up stuff that people are putting on their site. But anyways, that's how you do it. Any questions about how to use pexels before I move on? Because that's really all there is to it. You got to know the site exists, and then you just got to put in what you're looking for and curate what's there. But it is helpful to know what photos are more commercial. Like this one right here has got plenty of blue space. In this one, there actually wasn't enough black space, but I just set up a black box behind it and pulled it down, right? If I thought Photoshop, well, I'm going to try it. And I opened the wrong one. So I'm going to try to open up my Photoshop real quick and see if I can show you, because it's real simple. This, hang on a second. This design is actually pretty easy. So there it is right there. You can see the file sizes, it's 13 megs. But here's what I have going on, okay? If you're interested in layers at all. The biggest thing right here is, so there's this rectangle behind it. Now I had set up some other stuff, so let me turn these off because I don't want to confuse you guys. But so what I've got going on here is I've got the photo I imported. I changed the size, so I cut it out so you can't tell. I changed the size of it, so I actually changed the proportions, or what we call the ratio of the size, and I clipped what I didn't need. Then the trick here was adding this rectangle behind it, right? So I just added a box behind it, and that is what let me, where's the logo at right there? So I added this underneath it, and then when you take that and the picture, now you've got the canvas with blank space that you need for the business end of this, right? Because again, when you're doing graphics for advertising or sales slicks or anything like that, you've got to have a place to put your logo. You've got to have a place to put the title, any subsequent call to action, like visit my website, sign up here, join us on this LinkedIn Live, any of that stuff. You got to have space for all that. So you got to have some space. And if I was to cover the shift gear, that kind of would ruin it. But then also look, you notice this is something I wasn't going to talk about, but I almost always put in a shadow layer for fonts, and sometimes it's really subtle. You can't really see it in this design, but because I don't do anything halfway, I still put it there, even though I'm probably the only person on the planet who would ever appreciate it, except for now. I just showed you, so hopefully you do too. But when you do that, let me zoom in. So in full disclosure now, in Photoshop, I'm using hotkeys. So I'm using Control and Plus, okay, and I'm zooming in. So now when I zoom in, when I'm going to stack, now you can see it, okay? When I'm stacking my layers, I typically will go primary layer just slightly to the left. I actually center up the shadow. In full disclosure, in Ira design, a lot of people don't do that. They'll center the primary. I center the shadow or the secondary. So this one is centered up if you look at the grid, and this one is not. Okay. Anyways, it's just a little funk, but it's how I do it. All right. Now I didn't use the Ira frame on this. Again, this is when you're designing for clients. It's different than when you're designing for yourself. So your primary design styles for yourself, once you have those, then you can do that consistently. For me, I do a lot of design work for other people. Sometimes they don't even tell people that I did the design work, right? So it's called white label design. So when I'm doing white label design, I have to follow their brand standards, their media guide, whatever. And that's how I do it. Okay. So any questions about that? Again, if you have questions, you can drop them in the show. Otherwise, I am going to keep going. Next, I'm going to get to Canva, because Canva is really, to me, the crux of your designing, because you want to add your logo, you want to add your fonts, you want to make it your own. That's where you're going to do it. So Pexels is where you're going to grab. Pexels is where you're going to grab the stock photo. Again, this is a source for you, a resource for you to grab stock photos without spending any money. Canva is where you can come and then manipulate the photo, kind of. You're not really editing the photo. It's not Photoshop. Canva is actually a lot more like Illustrator in the sense that you're going to add over the top of the photo. Photoshop was designed to actually manipulate the photo itself, but Illustrator is where you design graphics from scratch. So you're going to add a base layer, that photo that you pull in from Pexels or wherever you're getting your photos from. Maybe you're like me and you take your own photographs. That's cool. I love it when I use my own photographs, right? But let's say you want to create an infographic. I'm just going to show you how to do a bunch of stuff. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, did you guys notice in the show description, it froze? Am I frozen for everybody, or is it just Mariella? I'm having internet issues today, apparently, so I'm not sure if I'm live or not. But it looks like I'm live, according to mine. So I don't know if somebody can let me know if I'm frozen. That'd be great. My wife is checking, but anybody can hear me? Looks like I'm live. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going. So one of the things that I did the other day, let me pull up the post. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull up the posts because we're live. So never mind. That's silly. Okay. Hang on a second. I'm gonna pull this thing up. I created a few things, but one of the things that I created was this right here. A lot of you don't have a what we call cover photo that tells people what you do on your social media profiles, right? So if they're on LinkedIn and they come to your profile, if you're on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're at, if you're a business owner or if you're in sales, I mean, almost any position, it would be helpful to set up the cover photo for your social media so that people, once they get there, they know right away, what do you do? Oh, Michelle's saying I'm good too. So, okay. So Mariella might be you. I don't know. It could be me too. But anyways, thank you, Michelle, for the feedback. So I'm going to show you how I did this. I'm not going to use this. I already have one. But I just wanted to go through it to see, frankly, to make sure I was still up, because I haven't used Canva. Just a full disclosure, I haven't used Canva in years. Back in 2018, I was using it before I purchased my Photoshop stuff again, right? Because back then I was selling printer equipment and I didn't need to do design work for folks. But anyways, I was doing Canva for Project Help You Grow needs. And then I got frustrated because of the limitations of Canva. And so I just purchased Photoshop. Anyways, that's kind of how that went. But let me show you how I built this, because we can talk about why I put everything where I did. But if you keep in mind the rule of thirds that I just covered, then it should be kind of obvious. But this is my logo for Bowman Digital Media. This is the name of the company. This is what we do. Okay. So why is everything where it is? Well, hopefully that addresses that. But let's get into Canva. The first thing that you can do is you can say, okay, well, what is it that I'm trying to create, right? So you can come in here once you've made your designs. Like, here's the design that I made. And in another sample, I'm going to show you how to make a GIF, which is a graphical information format. That's what GIF stands for. But what it really means is it's information, it's graphics in motion, right? That's what a GIF is. So we'll talk about that too. But well, you can come up here and basically see all these templates. So you basically just want to start with, what is it that you're trying to build? You're trying to make a flyer, trying to do a Facebook post, you want to do a LinkedIn banner, like that's what this is, right? So I'll click on that. And then now you just start scrolling until you see something that catches your eye that you want to use as a starter. Now, don't worry about what the writing is, because we can change. We don't have to have writing. We can change the writing. We can change the font. We can change the colors. the main thing that you're looking for here is the background photo. And when you go to set this up for LinkedIn, in this case, LinkedIn cover photo, if I chose Facebook or YouTube or whatever, would be set up for that. But the format size will be correct. Have you ever made something and then go to load it and it's cropping off stuff, the top, the bottom, the sides? Oh my gosh, that drives me insane. You know, that really makes me mad when I've set it up in Photoshop or Illustrator using the pixel recommendation that they give you and it's wrong. Oh, that's real. That really that chops my hide. But it happens too, unfortunately, but not on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you're good, right? So let's say you want to create one. Well, I used yellow before. Let's just do one. Let's do this one right here. Okay. So you want to go ahead and you want to use this template. Okay. Simple enough. No rocket science here. Now this is where you could go from really basic to a little bit of advanced if you know what you're doing. So for me, for example, in uploads, one of the things here, I've got a PNG of my logo. What does that mean? That means the white space around the square is not white. It's clear. So if I load this up, which I'm going to do because we're going to use this piece, okay? So now I can resize it. I can drag it. I can move it. Like if I'm designing something for Project Help You Grow, I'm going to use Project Help You Grow's logo. Bowman Coaching, I'll use Bowman Coaching's logo. But most of the time when I'm designing, you know, if it's not for a client, if it's for me, it's going to be for Bowman Digital Media. So I'm going to put that on there, okay? Now, I'm not going to put it here because I'm covering up the graphic that's there. So I'm going to put it somewhere else. So I'm just going to shrink it down for a minute because it's too big. And I'm just going to leave it right here for a second and ignore everything else. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change some text. Now, I like what they've got here. I'm going to talk about fonts, okay? What they've got here is a sans serif font. That's my favorite kind, okay? Sans serif means it doesn't have the little foots at the top. I'm going to see if I can zoom in here. This is actually something I didn't think about for this. It's really small. Okay, so I can zoom in. Now, this font below, this accent font, is a serif font. What is a serif font, Ira? See this little stuff at the top and this little stuff at the bottom, the feet? Sans serif was designed to help you keep things aligned visually. It's, to me, more of a retro font. So when I'm trying to do retro work, I actually will use serif fonts. But it is not my natural preference. And here, this is a very classic way. A lot of people who get formal design training will use sans serif and serif together like this. One's fat, one's tall, one's short, one's thin. One with sans serif, one with serif. That happens all the time because they're looking for contrast. We're going to talk about this with colors too. Okay, so I'm going to get this out of the way. Those are just things that you upload. So you may pay somebody like me to design your logo. Okay, when you pay somebody like me to design your logo, one of the things that you're going to want to ask them for are PNG files. PNG files are really the best type of files to work with when you're combining on Canva. Okay, so you might pay somebody a couple $100, you might pay somebody $50, whatever you pay them, depends on who you order from, right? To do your logo, ask them one of the file types that you should ask for. Obviously, you want a JPEG, you want a PNG, and then you also want the design file. Now, the other thing about logos a lot of people don't think about is this thing called stacked, which a stacked logo, like if you have a really wide logo, sometimes like for Instagram, you need a square. So if you take a really wide logo and then put it in a square, a lot of times it's so small you can't read it. So what you want to do is have an alternative logo that's called stacked that presents itself more clearly in a square format. Okay, so you want PNGs, you want JPEG, you want a regular traditional logo, and then if you have a wide logo, what we would consider landscape, then you also want to get a stacked version. Okay, so those are just some of the things to consider with your logo work. But anyways, once we have the background that we want, okay? And we've added the logo components, anything that we're going to add. We have everything on here that we want. Now it's just a matter of moving things around. Like, see, you can actually move these lines. Let's say you wanted to make these a little bit bigger. Super cool. You can trade out that spacing. Why would you change out that spacing? Well, it might be that instead of the branding design team agency, maybe we're just going to do something like simple and go, right? And maybe we want one line. Well, we can just drag and drop and make that wider. Now, what if we want to make that 3 lines? You can do that too. Okay? You can change really easy anything you want. And what if you don't want that alignment? Maybe you want, and I actually did that the other day. I made it so it was left justified. Let me scoot these back over. And Canva's basically set up for SnapGrid. So it's supposed to help you with alignment. It's not in this case. But it's supposed to help you with alignments to make it so things are more like evenly spaced out. It actually is not right here. But anyways, this gap is a little bit bigger. If I zoom in, that will help. But that's not what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you right now. This is font. So right now it's set up for center. So if I change that, now it just changed to left justified. You do it again, that's center. And now that's right justified. So in this case, a lot of times you're going to want to do something like that. And then this, I would never put where creativity meets practicality. That doesn't say anything what I want to say. But really right there, I might put like my website address. That might be a good thing to put there. So actually, I'm going to teach you another trick. When you're typing out multiple words, even for a website address, it helps if you capitalize the first letter of each new word. And it helps with recognizing the font or the readability. It's just one of those things where people actually just naturally will be able to read it better. Get like 4 or 5 words and type them all lowercase and put them together in a cluster, and people don't necessarily know where to start and stop. But by capitalizing that first letter of each new word, you've just given them an easily recognizable pattern for them and their brain to recognize and understand and comprehend the data. So, okay. So now from here, again, if I want to move this stuff around, I can. Okay. So maybe I want to take all these pieces, because it could be that I want the spacing to be bigger. It could just be that I want this in the center. It could be, honestly, that I want to put my logo bigger and I want to put it on the left and resize. So that's how easy it is. I mean, it really is. And see that line right there? It's trying to show me, okay, now that is center. Center from the horizontal, not from the vertical. Okay. So any questions about this so far? Once you have it all set up the way you like it, and like if you don't want this, you can delete these, by the way. If I don't like that piece, which I'm not crazy about it, I wouldn't actually do it this way. So maybe I should set it up the way I would actually do it. But the other thing is I don't have to worry about font sizes. If I change it, it automatically increases it. So again, I want to keep in mind a couple things. So this is center slot, but it's really too big because it's ignoring the rule of thirds, right? So to do it correctly, I need to have about 1/3 and 1/3 below. So I need to do that, or I want to set it up so that it's the whole thing. So the correct size, if I'm following the rule of thirds right here, and this actually works pretty good because that's about 1/3. Anyways, I just slide that over, okay? That would fit perfect. So I actually like this setup better. I don't like this left justification. That just is bugging my eyes, okay? So again, you could kind of go with what just feels natural, but it seems like that should be the right answer there. And it's just because this is now got to match. So what I would do if I was going to like do this for real, I think I would just shrink this guy down. This is actually just an accent piece. All of these are accent pieces. Now in Photoshop, what I would do is I would actually select these in layers and I would group them together. So this is one of the things that it's a little bit trickier to do here in Canva. But see, now I've got those 3 pieces selected. So you could do something like that. I was trying to select this guy too to do it at the same time. So now I'm just going to have to kind of wing it. But again, you can do all this in Canva. So those are all lined up now. So now if I can select them, hold down the Shift key, and now I can move all 3 pieces together. You see? So now I want to try to put that in the top third. So now I'm going to shrink them all down together. Okay. That's going to be, like if I had this thing in a grid, this would be I would call this box number 2 because I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's how I do it. Now, you might do it differently. It really doesn't matter as long as you know what you're doing and you're happy with it. But so this is going to be in my grade 5, and I'm going to try to squeeze this in my grade 5 too, right? So I'm going to try to put these side by side. Actually, I don't like that. So I'm going to put that right there, and I'm going to make this one bigger, and I'm going to drag it down. And I'm going to line him up halfway there, okay? So that's one way that you could make it. Now, when you're happy with it, what I recommend that you do is come here, hit File, Save. Okay, so save it. And then from that point forward, it actually will be here in your, if you come back home just for a second, all your designs, it's right there. So let's say you're not finished or you want to get some people's, opinion on it. You click on it and there's your setup, okay? So maybe I want to change the color. In fact, if you want to change font colors and stuff, you can come here. And this has all the different colors that you've used in this element. So if you want to match like that red, you know what I mean? Or you want it to be the gray. Now, you can change to a specific color. Just hit the plus button. And then like if you know what your color is, your hex color is, I closed out my Photoshop. I'm going to open it back up. I'm going to show you a cheater way to get it if you don't know. Okay. Again, this is one of those things when you get a graphic design, like, you pay someone like me to create your logo. One of the questions that you can ask us are, okay, what are these colors schemes? What fonts did you use? You should get what we call a brand guide for all of it so that you can easily create new art that matches. So if you're using sans serif or serif fonts, there could be bold, it could be italic. Like I use Proxinova a lot, or there's any different fonts that you could use. Like you guys are probably more familiar with like Calvary or Arial or something like that, right? But when you are designing for branding purposes, whenever you can use your native colors, it helps to make it look more professional. So for example, I'm not going to use the stock 6 colors that they might have: a green, a red, a blue, a black, a white, and a gray, right? You don't necessarily want to use those. Like if I'm using a gray that isn't Bowman Digital Media gray, then that's not going to look right, okay? But what I'm going to do, like right here, is I'm going to open up. So in my Photoshop, let me show you guys how to do this if you have Photoshop. There's not a way to do this in Canva that I know of. But in Photoshop, what I can do, I'm having trouble seeing it just because of the size here. Hang on. I'm going to do something different. The way this works is a little bit different. So I'm going to share it. I'm just moving things around. Okay. So like if I want to pick this thing, I can come here. Is it sharing it now? Yeah. Okay. See that color right there? So if I take this and copy it, and then come over to my Canva, I can just take that number and I can dial it in, and then it's that gray. And then just hit the enter, and now that gray is there. So now when I use it, it's the exact color, right? Or if I wanted that black, the black is right there. It pulled it out for me. But if I want to tell it to use a specific color, let's say, for example, okay, I'm going to go back into my Photoshop. And I'm going to open something different with just a photo in it. Let's say I wanted to use, I kind of like that color, but I don't like that photo. I should have thought about this before. Sorry, guys. Oh, there we go. Let's say I wanted to use LinkedIn's blue. And I don't know what LinkedIn's blue is, but I could just come there and go, okay, that's LinkedIn's blue. So now I'm going to take that, hit the copy, come down here into my Canva, add that color, and there's LinkedIn blue. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope it does. Using the right colors for branding is super important. But now also keep in mind, like if I was to take this right here, this color line, and chop it in half, these are warm colors and these are cool colors. Okay, you've got your primary color, which is what? Your blue, your yellow, and your red. From those three colors, by mixing them, you get what? Your secondary colors, and those go out through the color wheel. Now, we just Google real quick, color wheel, so I can bring one up for you quickly. This is a color wheel, okay? When you take the color wheel and you chop it, it's not exactly set up right on this one, but that's okay. When you chop it in half, basically the stuff on this side, this is your cool colors. These are your warm colors, okay? So when you're trying to do something bright and grab attention, you typically want to use warm colors. When you're trying to do something that is kind of in the background or calming, then you want to use your cool colors in design. But when we're doing stuff like this, we're more looking for contrast. So one of the ways to get good contrast, a simple thing to keep in mind, is that the opposite side, whatever's on the exact opposite side of the color wheel, like your orange and your blues, those contrast really well, right? Green and red contrast really, really well. Yellow and purple, they contrast really well. So in this case, what they chose, they had white originally and orange. But this actually works really well too, naturally. Let's say I didn't want to use the gray color from my logo, but I wanted to use something that matched better or contrasted better with the orange. Now, I've already got orange in these photos. And the reason why they're using those is because blue and orange are contrasting colors. But if I'm going to use orange here, it would make more sense, in my opinion, to do that. Or to match this one as close as I can. Now, you could come into color wheel and drag it and find the shade that you want. And then, of course, there's also, if you want to mix up, the shade. The shading is something we're probably not going to get into today because I don't want to drag this out too much longer. But let's say I wanted that orange. Okay, now I've got that orange. Now I've got a good contrast. It's easy to read. Again, I've got a serif font down here, and I've got a sans serif. The other thing that you could do here, if you wanted to change fonts. So I call these, oh, that's the paid version. Never mind. Trying to show you free stuff. So I'm looking for something, if they have it. They may not have this for free. Again, this is the difference between using free resources and paying for stuff. And it's one of the reasons why I don't use free stuff for my professional work. But oh, here we go. So you could use that one. I like this, especially when I wouldn't use it for this. I like the font. Oops, I like that font, but I don't like it for this particular case. Like I wouldn't do this, right? Because it's not as easy to read. So this is like when I'm using a font like this, it's to add fun factor. It's, you know, typically an accent piece. Like I might put, you know, Monday at 11. Right? It's an accent, not the main information. You know, I just want to make sure people know. I didn't spell Monday right, but there you go. You guys are used to my typos by now, I'm sure. So I typically, when I'm mixing up fonts, I will use a script and a sans serif. This is my more natural usage, although I don't use this particular font, which I don't even remember what it's called. I don't use that one. But anyways, is there any questions about what I've done so far? I don't see questions in my, I don't even know where my screen here went. There it is. Have you tried Pixlr? I have not tried Pixlr. I don't know what Pixlr is. What is Pixlr? I can learn here too. So I typically, like I said, for my primary design tools are Illustrator, Photoshop. For film editing, I typically use Adobe Premiere, or I'll use Filmora 9. So those are really the four. And then I use Lightroom, which I didn't get into at all today. Lightroom, when I take photos, so my order of operations, so I take the photos with my Canon camera, then I download them to my computer, I upload them into Lightroom, I change the color, I get the coloring the way I want if I'm making any edits to that, and then I take it into Photoshop and do any of the fun stuff. So that's how I manipulate my own photographs. But for design work, if I'm just taking like a background photo from somebody else, like a base photo, like I would get from Pexels, and I'm going to manipulate it, then I just put that right into Photoshop. That's how I do it. So I spend a lot of time in Photoshop. If I'm creating a new graphic from scratch, then I need a vector file, which we didn't get into at all either. But you have raster images and you have vector images. When you're just taking a raster and making another raster, I do that in Photoshop. But if you want to create a vector file, you got to do it in Illustrator. Well, you don't have to, but that's how I do it, right? So Illustrator is designed to take photos, or to design something from nothing. You don't have anything. You want to create Bowman Digital Media's logo. That was created in Illustrator, right? So if you ask me to design something from nothing, not from a photo, I'm going to use Illustrator. But you can use Canva, like I use Photoshop and Illustrator, kind of. It does a little bit of each. But you're going to take a base photo that you're either going to grab from Canva or from Pexels or something like it, and then you're going to add your own text. So let me show you a little bit more on Canva. I'm just going to move stuff around again. Okay, so if you go back to Canva, follow me here, and let's go back to the home. Let's say we want to make, let's do an infographic. Infographics are useful to communicate information. There's actually all kinds of ways to do it, but typically, like they're showing you, these are rack card setups. So a rack card is usually kind of like a third of a sheet, and it's typically going to find it in a display case, like on a counter or next to a door or a display, right? That's what a rack card is. They set them in racks. So I can edit any of this stuff. So if you want to go through and just find one that you like, this is the one I clicked on. So we could just do it real quick. So now they've already got fonts and colors that pretty much work, but you can change any of this stuff that you want. So becoming great entrepreneurs, maybe want to say art lessons, right? Or let's say graphics, because it's more apropos. Okay, graphic lessons. And I want it to fit, so I'm going to take this and just shrink it down. That should fit now. Okay, still doesn't fit quite, so I'm just going to expand it, and then I want to move it. So I'm going to move it so it's in the center. Okay, I can use rule of thirds still inside each section. Okay, now I don't like this because it's not center justified. So I'm going to center justify that, and I'm going to center justify that underneath, and that's going to look more natural. See? Now, if I want to make this, so these are cool, calming colors. They're trying to keep it easy, but let's say I want some shock value. I might want to go ahead in here and change it. Remember the color wheel opposites. So I'm going to use an opposite color there, and now that screams at me graphic lessons. I think that's more fun. I don't know what top traits of the greats mean, so I'm going to change that out too, and I'm going to say now I want to emphasize me. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to come here to my colors. Again, these are the colors now that are in, but maybe I don't want to use the same color I used before. Oops. I keep hitting enter in it. Changes it. Okay. So now that's got an accent, but it's not as loud as graphic lessons. Okay. On the color wheel, the one straight across is the one that's going to contrast the most. But if you go in thirds, these complement each other. So boom, boom, and boom. These three complement each other because of the way they lay out on the wheel. So if I was going to do green, I could do green, purple, and that color, for example, right? Those three would go well together. It doesn't look like it when you're looking at it this way, but when you look at it on a piece, it makes more sense. So you just have to trust me on that. You can go opposites or go thirds on the color wheel, and those will look good for different reasons, okay? Now, if I'm coming in here, I'm not going to change what all of this says, but see how they've got the light and the dark? So again, I could do the same. I'm going to keep those colors because actually they work well. But now I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to change. Now this is where if I have a sans serif font, which I do, I might want to pull that from my style guide and go, okay, well, instead of using this one, I'm going to use one that I use all the time. So for like example, this is one that I use all the time. Hang on a second. I'm just going to select it real quick. And of course, this is what's going to happen because we're live. That's okay. Yeah, it doesn't like it, so that's okay. I'm just going to show you. So if I zoom in and hit enter, actually that looks like crap. Never mind. That's impact, but it's just too small. Okay, so live lessons. Okay, so impact, I'm not liking that, right? Here's some that I use all the time. I use alfresco. I actually do use impact. Let me just show you my stars. These are the ones that I use probably the most, right? So Josephine, I like that one. This is one that I use that's funky. This is an accent font that I use, but I use it quite a bit. Cooper Black is one of the official fonts of Bowman Digital Media. And Proxy Nova, I use this a lot, but I use condensed because it's thin. So I use fat, I use thin, I use rounded corners, and I use diagonal lines. Those are some of my styling traits. And then I like I said, the script fonts I use for accents to talk about, things. Well, let's say, in this design that I'm making on Canva, I want to match my branding guide. So I could come in here on this font and pick, if they have it. See, they have Cooper. They don't have exactly the same one I have, but let's just say you don't have Photoshop and you were using this, then you could do that. You could use the one that they have. And now that is the brand standard. And I just need to change all of it. So I need to just pick that and make sure that's selected. And then come here. It doesn't look like it actually changed it, but it says it did. Yeah, it did. Okay. See the change? So it's still the same type of font. It's just now it's the brand standard. So when people read it and they see this and other things that you're doing, it all looks the same. So then my secondary font, let's say I want to, let's see if they have another one here. So let's see if they have an alfresco. Let's see if they got it. Again, we wouldn't use it this way, but just for lesson's sake. There it is. Let's not change that. Oh, actually, you know what we could do? We could do my name that way. We really could. Okay, so let's see if they have. They don't. Yeah, they don't have it. But let's see, they've got handwriting fonts here. So we'll just pick one that's like it. Like that. Now, see, I don't like this because this has now changed all of it. But check this out. What I can do is just, so I hit hotkeys, Control X. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in, which we haven't done any of this yet. So actually, this is a good thing to do. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to add in a title block. Okay. So I'm going to add something that isn't there. So I'm going to say text. I'm going to add, I just pick which kind that I'm going to put in, a little bit of body text. And now it's going to have a new line. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to put that. And then I'm going to drag it. Okay. And then now Ira's, that doesn't make sense. I would have to do this again. So to make it look right, I'm going to do it again. And I want to go to the type again. I'm going to come back to that one that I used, which I think was that one. And now I'm going to move it because I don't want it there. And I'm going to change the color again. Oops. I keep hitting enter and it's deleting it. All right. Done. Okay, and I can change this too, by the way. So I don't have to have all that if I don't want, if that's bugging you, which it bugs me. But then I can move it and I'll set this up. And so now I can have 3 different types of fonts. I can have the 3 different colors. And when I back out, that's what it looks like. So, and you could do that again if you wanted to change the font type here. I'm doing Control plus to zoom in, by the way, and Control minus to zoom out. I'm going to take that. I want to change the font type. You can just come up here and go, okay, I don't want handwriting font. I want Cooper. And then it changes it. Okay. You can do Cooper Hewitt if you want it thin. But now, oops, I can hit this, by the way, and that unerases it. It's just, you know, undo. So you don't have to retype everything. Okay, when you're all done, then again, you can download it. You can hit file and save it. I always save it first. So save it and then download it. When you download, there are different options here. Okay, PNG. Now, when I ask you to get your logo created as PNG, that's because auspiciously there's going to be some white space in there that you want to be clear, like in my logo, right? In my logo, where's my stuff? This isn't my stuff. This is my stuff. Okay. So in my logo, there's a square there. In the design file, if that was a JPEG, everything inside that square would be white. You wouldn't be able to see through it. When you get the PNG file, you get it so that that white space is clear, and now you can see through it, right? So if I was going to set it up, it would be something like that. Again, row of thirds, putting it in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so, and if I was going to do that, honestly, I'd probably have to now push this up to make it look right. Otherwise, it's going to be out of balance. But I digress. Okay, so something like that. Now, when I'm saving this file, because there's no white space anywhere, right? We have used every inch of this thing. We don't need a JPEG. The reason it's suggesting PDF is because it assumes you want to print it. So usually this suggestion is going to be correct. But if I was just saving this for artwork, I would actually want this as a JPEG, or I don't want SVG files. I don't use them. I use either AI files, which is Adobe Illustrator, or I use an EPS, which is a Photoshop, or a PDF for design work. So in this case, you probably would want the high quality because auspiciously, again, you're going to be printing this out and putting this in a rack card, which is what we chose. This is infographic. But you could use any of these. But because you saved it, you can come back and re-download it as another one. So if like you were going to get these printed and you send it as a JPEG and your print shop said, hey, we can't use that, it's probably because the file size is too small and they're losing the resolution. You could come back and get this print version. It'll be a higher res file. So smaller file, easier to save. Much better for websites, by the way. A lot of times people forget about website speed. But when you're loading these graphics up on social media or on your own websites, you don't want large files because large files slow your site down. So we didn't get into design files are huge, but design files are huge. So whenever you can use a small file and not reduce your image quality, in other words, it's not pixelated, then you want to use the smaller file because it'll speed up the site. So that's how you do the basics in Canva. You can pick things and move them around. You can change the size. That stuff is all intuitive. That's why I like Canva. It's really easy. You don't really need lessons on Canva. More of what I was hoping to get into you guys' brains today was some of the how you pick the fonts, how you pick the colors, how you pick the size of your object. So if there's any questions about that while we're still live here, I'm just going to open this thing up to take questions, because if not, I think I've pretty much covered what I was hoping to cover today in the lesson so far. So is there any questions for me at this point on how to use the software or how to set up? You could tell you spend a great amount of time using this program. Actually, these aren't the programs I use. That's the funny part. But I design, I mean, in full disclosure, I probably spend about 8 hours of every day doing design work. Every single day I do design. So I still don't know what Pixlr is. I'd have to look and see. I'm just going to pull it up real quick and see if I've ever seen it. It's not something off the top of my head. I'm assuming it's just pixlr.com. Before you continue to photographing.net. Okay, so no, but I'm doing something wrong. But no, I have not heard of Pixlr. But anyways, when you're setting up your designs, you want something that is easy to read, it's easy to get the information, that it catches people's attention, and it doesn't take forever to load, right? Like, file size is important. We didn't even talk about white space, but white space is important too. I learned that a long time ago. So don't overstuff your graphics with items. Like I call it calming effect. We've talked about post setups before for social media. Like you want to have some type of headline and then some white space, like hit enter a couple times and give some space between that and the next piece of information, which should be like a subheading. Just a couple things to support the headline, right? So the subheading. And then you come down a little bit more white space, and then you put the body of the text. And typically you want to do that with some bullet points or something. So that's how we set up social media posts. We're going to do the same thing basically with our graphics. The most important information is going to usually be the largest font size and a color that's going to contrast the most with the background or the image that you're putting it on the top of. So for example, if I'm using a white background, I'm almost always going to use a black font over the top of it because white and black are the negatives of each other. There's the most contrast, right? So blue and red, again, you want to go opposite ends of the color wheel. When you're not sure, like if you're using green and you're not sure, just pull up the color wheel, look at the exact opposite side of whatever color you're in, and there you go. And then don't forget to use tints and shading. We didn't cover tints and shading, but basically what happens is inside a color, let's say you're in a red and you've got your predominant, like your color family, you're using reds. You want to have like the most important stuff be the full on color. But then you can have some of your accent stuff, some of the stuff that's like, not as important. It's good information, but it's not as important information. You can have that in lighter shades of that pop color. And that's a way to help too. Okay, so yeah, I was not going to the right place. Thank you for sharing that. I have not used Pixlr Editor before. I don't know what that is. So let's look at it real quick together. Pixlr.com. It's a photo editor. Nope, never heard of it. So there you go. I am not a foremost expert on anything. I was not classically trained to do any of the stuff that I've shown you. I've just learned over the years. I started my design career with graphics because our designer was fired on the spot because she lost her mind. And I had a lot of jobs coming in. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada doing graphics, printing, and we have to have the files to print. And because our graphic designer lost her mind and got laid off, or lost her job. That's not the right way to say it. She didn't get laid off. She got fired for losing her mind. But she went ballistic. And we had work that had to get done. So my boss and I, we were sitting in front of two computers. One of them had Illustrator and one of them had Photoshop. And he said, Ira, I don't know the difference between these programs. We need to get this going. So you sit down and you figure out this one, and I'll figure out the other one. And together we'll be able to get this thing done. And so that's how I was baptized by fire with Photoshop and Illustrator. But I learned Photoshop more than I learned Illustrator back then because that was the computer that I just happened to be sitting in front of. So, I didn't go to university for design work, but I do have 20 years of print background, print history. So that helps, but you've all seen these things in your life over and over and over again. You just haven't necessarily taken the time to identify it and classify it and categorize it so that it's, you can then recreate it. But that's what I've been doing for, well over a decade now, is I've been figuring this stuff out to give advice to my clients, to do the design work for my clients when needed. And then, of course, over the last year, I've been doing it full time. Well, thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful. I mean, if you guys have any specific questions, like, how do you pick colors or what fonts to use or, anything, go ahead and ask. Now is the time. I don't know what plus 55.56 is. I don't get that reference. Sorry. But again, I'm not a classically trained design person either. I just, I have real world experience. Everything that I have learned, I've either read in a book, I've read, I have done a lot of training, but not, like I don't have a master's in graphics design or something like that, right? So I've done a lot of courses. You can do YouTube. In fact, in full disclosure, my wife is joining the team officially, right? Bowman Digital Media, which is funny because she's an owner of the business anyways, but she's joining, right? So I have her going to watch some videos on how to use Illustrator, how to use Photoshop, and things like that. There's lots of resources out there that you can do and learn this stuff relatively quickly if you want to dial in. Most business owners, I think, should at least have a basic understanding of how design works so that you know even what to ask for, or if you're getting good advice from the people that you're sending your artwork to. Basically, it boils down to this. Does the artwork communicate what it needs to communicate in a way that's easy to comprehend? And is it visually interesting? If it does those two things, you're probably doing all right. But if it's not, then you're probably breaking one or more of these rules that I've tried to teach you today. Again, with the rule of thirds, with the font selections, again, either serif and sans serif as a combination, or if you're using two of the same type of fonts, then you want to make sure you're using tall and wide and short and skinny, or some combination thereof, right? So you could use a tall and thin with the short and fat if you want. I typically don't do that because the short and fat ones can be hard to read. So, and then for me, again, accent, I typically, if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to pull in a third font, it's typically going to be a script font, and it's just going to be one or two words usually, right? Like in that example I showed you with the Canva there at the end, I put my name in a script font. I didn't like that script font, full disclosure, but anyways. Al fresco, baby. That's my favorite one. It's easy to read. It's fun. It's thin. The words are kind of related to how I write. So there's that. But my pleasure. Again, I've showed you today Pexels, and I've showed you Canva. And the reason why I focused on those for this was because they're free. Right? It wasn't that I think they're the best resources. In full disclosure, again, for Jason's point, I don't use them myself. I have used, well, that's not true. I use Pexels. I use Pexels a lot, but I don't use it nearly as much as some of the other stuff that I pay for. But I don't ever use Canva, in full disclosure. I stopped using Canva not because, I didn't, it's not that it isn't powerful. It is, especially depending on what you're trying to do. But once you learn how to use these full graphics programs like Illustrator and Photoshop, using Canva is very restrictive. You know what I mean? You want to do more. You understand what could happen, and then you can't do it. And you're like, I'm going to pull my hair out. So now you know what happened. So anyways, even before I started doing Bowman Digital Media, I purchased Illustrator and Photoshop, and then I got into Premiere. I actually used Filmora 9 as my primary video creating software and editing software for a long time because I really liked how easy it was. So if you're looking for film editing software, Filmora, actually they have 10 now. I never got it because I have Premiere, so I don't need it. But Filmora does a good job if you're looking for some editing software for either GIF or for your own movies. Like if you want to edit your videos, I keep calling them movies, but they're videos. Anyways, if you need a video editor, I use Adobe, but you can use Filmora. Filmora is not expensive. It's not free, but it's not expensive. So hopefully that helps. Anyways, that's 90 minutes worth of me. We survived the whatever that was, freeze. With me trying to show, I was going to show you guys some stuff on Illustrator and Photoshop. I did bring up Photoshop a couple times and show you some of the things like, how I pick colors out. So if you have a logo that you want to know what your color are, what are your hex colors for future design work, if you send me the logo, just let me know, hey, can you tell me what these colors are? I'll send them back to you. I won't charge you for that. That'll just be, a value add from Ira to you. My compliments to you, right? But that way in the future, when you're doing your design work in Canva, you can then take that color scheme and use your colors for branding. And then it helps, again, to use the same fonts over and over. So repetition. People will start to see fonts and colors, and it'll naturally be, oh, I know what that is. That's Bowman Digital Media, or that's, Jason or Michelle or whoever, whatever your company is. Okay. anyways, my name's Ira. I will be back on next week. I think I have a guest, but I don't remember, in full disclosure, who it is. So look for that. But this show is on every week. It's Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Typically, what we do on Marketing Mondays is we talk about all about marketing. Today was something different. I just wanted to do a lesson because my guest had to cancel. Instead of replacing the guest, I thought, let me do a graphics lesson and help you guys who can't afford the help, or you're trying to do your own stuff, to hopefully help you get a little bit better. And so hopefully we accomplish that with what I covered today. Thank you guys very much for joining, and I will see you next time, hopefully. Oh, I did want to mention, if you run your own business, tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to be, well, I work with Exit Your Way. I'm on the Exit Your Way team, and we're doing an accelerator blitz on LinkedIn Live. So it'll be on my channel. So just come back to me at 9 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover 12 major points of how we at Exit Your Way help our clients to get more out of their business, both immediately while they're running their business and then later when they go to sell it. So if you own your business and you're interested in ways that you might be able to, take some of these ideas and get more out of your business now, watch the show. We're also going to talk about a program that we offer. It's a monthly program that goes throughout the year where you can join and be part of a group where we teach these things more in depth. So think like coaching, and then you get peer-to-peer support too from other people in the group. Anyways, we'll explain how that works tomorrow. Again, that's at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And then if you're a job seeker and you're watching this, I have my new show is on Thursdays. I'm doing it this week at 5 o'clock. I haven't settled on the time yet. Last week I did it at 6 p.m. Pacific. This week I'm doing it at 5 p.m. Pacific, an hour earlier. But that's called Job Seeker Spotlight with Ira Bowman. That is my way to help you get more attention on social media, raise the spotlight on you, and hopefully recruiters and employers will see it, and you can land a job faster. You can come on the air with me on camera, or you can send me the link in the comments when I'm live, and I will pull your profile up and review the profile for you. I'll give you some tips on what you can do, what changes you can make, adjust to your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook profile, whatever profile you want to send me, but most people are doing their LinkedIn profiles. But I'll give you some advice on what you can do to change it up and maybe catch more attention and get more traffic. But either which way, you'll be on the show on camera or via your profile, and hopefully people will see it. If you're a recruiter or an employer and you're hiring, you're welcome to come on as a guest as well and talk about the job and who you're looking for as far as what type of candidate you're looking for, and maybe we can get you a way to fill that job faster too. So I have people who need employees and they're having trouble finding them. Like, for example, if you're a machinist, CNC operator, and you're willing to work in Wisconsin, one of my friends on social media owns a business and he's having an impossible time finding machinists with, the right skill set to fill the role. And he's actually turning away business right now because he doesn't have enough staff to do the extra work. I think that's insane. So, that's the idea of the show, is to help bring together job seekers, recruiters, and employers in a way that, can help you all get together faster. So anyways, that's called Job Seeker Spotlight. That's on Thursdays. And we just changed Cup of Joe from Saturday to Friday. So catch us at our new day and time. That's 6 p.m. Eastern. That's 3 p.m. Pacific. That's Friday. So now if you want to find me, you find me Mondays, Marketing Mondays. You can find me Thursdays for Job Seeker Spotlight, and you can find me Friday for Cup of Joe. And those are my live shows. I will be updating my Ira guide. I actually pulled it down, but I'll be updating the Ira guide soon. As soon as I settle on the Thursday time, I'm kind of oscillating back and forth because honestly, 5 p.m. in Pacific, I think, is midnight in Europe. So it doesn't really work for Europe, but it's better for India because it's a little bit, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to find this balance where everybody can participate, or as many people can participate as possible. Because if you're not familiar with Project Help You Grow, like Michelle put that there for me, thank you very much. Project Help You Grow is a global philanthropy that I run. My website, projecthelpyougrow.com, is free, but it works for everybody around the world. And so I try to do things for Project Help You Grow that work for as many places around the world as possible. It's always going to be a bad time for somebody, but I try to make it so it's as good a time as possible for as many people as possible. Try to accommodate that way. So as soon as I lock in a show time, I will put up the Ira guide with the new dates and times, but that's where you can find me. Monday, Thursday, and Friday on lives. Okay. Thank y'all for joining. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you guys tomorrow for the Exit Your Way Entrepreneurial Blitz, Accelerator Blitz, as we're calling it. Again, that's at 9 a.m. BowmanDigitalMedia.com.